Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Meteorologist Edward Shaw with midday update for you on what we're tracking outside, what we're going to continue to see here over the next few hours for today and even tomorrow. Right now, you can see quite a bit of rainfall within our areas. That moisture has moved in, and a lot of it is freezing rain in parts of the New River Valley and up into the highlands right now. But as you look a little bit closer, you can see as we get into the parts of Roanoke, Bedford, even Lexington and Lynchburg, that's kind of where we're seeing more consistent rainfall rather than any kind of freezing precipitation whatsoever. That being said, taking a little bit of a larger scale view of what we're seeing with this system, you can see this is part of an elongated system that's bringing in quite a bit of snow to parts of the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. And there's still a lot of rain that's going to follow this throughout our area. Now, what we're expecting from this is a little bit of a flooding concern. See, the flash flood risk for today for most of the area is relatively higher than usual. Level 2 out of 4 for most of the region being a slight risk, including Montgomery County, Roanoke, Lexington, Lynchburg, Botetourt, and other areas including Harrisburg and Dublin. Now, with that being said, that flooding risk could extend all the way further south as well. So even if you're not within this flash flood risk map, you always have the chance of it, given especially with some of these rivers. Now, with that being said, what we're going to see here last 24 hours, we haven't seen much rainfall, if any, throughout the region. But as we get further to the west and we take a look at what's been happening over there, you can see there's parts of Tennessee and Kentucky that are rapidly getting rain over the last 24 hours with some pretty hefty rainfall rates. And so we'll have to see what happens with this once we get a little bit more. But right now, rainfall estimates are giving us about a ½ inch to an inch of rain just today. Now, again, likely going to have areas that are a little bit different with that. Most likely localized greater amounts, and potentially a little bit of freezing rain mixed in there as well in some of those areas that were running a little bit colder. Now, with that being said, let's go on to what we're expecting to happen here over the next few hours with our futurecast. So here we are about 12 p.m. right now. You see that rain really within the area mixed in with a little bit of freezing rain as well. And as we get throughout the day today, that part is actually going to move out, and we could end up just pretty much overcast by about 8 p.m. later tonight. But you'll notice that warm front and kind of where that rain band is, that warm front is going to move to the northeast, which is going to force that rain further to the northeast as well. And you can see on the back side of this system, that's where our next rainfall is coming in from. About 8 a.m. tomorrow, that's when we're going to see that cold front sweep through the area, bringing in some pretty heavy rain to our region. So certainly something you're going to wake up to and going to hear on your roof. We can hear the rain on the roof here at the station pretty well right now, just given how heavy it is. But that's going to head further to the east, and watch this area of snow up here that's going from Detroit all the way down into Cincy and Lexington. That actually starts wrapping around, and we start getting a little bit of snow on some of those western-facing slopes. So that's something that definitely a little bit interesting to keep in mind. But the other thing about this is that front is going to be very fast-moving. So we're going to end up having some winds getting rather gusty at times with this. Now, that's not a part of our alert day. The main reason we've issued the alert day is for flooding, because over the next 3 days, we're going to see about an inch or two of rain. But the other thing to keep in mind with this, if this was just an inch or two of rain and we'd been pretty dry for the most part, that's one thing. It's not all that much to be concerned about. But given the fact that we have all this excessive snow melt, this ice that's melted, as well as the rain we've already seen over the past week or two, the ground's already pretty saturated as is. So the water's going to have to go somewhere. And that's where you get your flooding concern. That being said, flood alerts throughout the area extending all the way up in Lexington, Covington, Hot Springs, essentially along the I-81 corridor and further to the west. But if we take a little bit of a wider view, you can see where the main parts of this system is coming through that's producing the heaviest rain. Numerous flash flood warnings throughout the states of Tennessee, Kentucky, even getting into West Virginia. And it wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if we see several more flash flood warnings go up within West Virginia, and maybe even a few within our region further up into parts of the Highlands. You see that one for Greenbrier in West Virginia, but maybe a few areas as well along that West Virginia border. Now, with that being said, what we're going to be seeing here over the next day or two, just going to be pretty much all rain. So not a ton of wintry precipitation outside of what we've seen this morning in some of those areas that are running at freezing, if not a little bit below. Now, rivers are going to be one place to monitor with this flood risk. So you can see on our river level gauge, essentially some of these rivers, the Dan River in South Boston, expected to crest about now, honestly, just given a lot of that water moving downstream. And what you could expect to see from some of these areas is a little bit of a delayed response. River flooding, it's very much like a domino effect where you start getting rain, but you don't see the flooding concerns until significantly after. Let's take a look at a few others. James River up in Scottsville, forecasted to crest at about 17.8 feet. So certainly something there to watch. But most of our rivers look pretty good throughout most of the area. The Roanoke River at Randolph, certainly one to watch as well. But I'm not expecting anything major in terms of river flooding outside of maybe some of those areas. Again, always want to keep your eye on the New River, as that's certainly an area that could very quickly start flooding. But that's going to be just kind of what you want to watch and what you want to monitor. Roanoke River in Roanoke, expected to get up to about 6.2 feet, which is in the action stage. Again, it's when we start seeing that red and that purple, that's when we start getting a little bit worried throughout the area. Yellow's usually pretty tolerable. You might just notice a little bit of excessive runoff within the area from that. Greenbrier River, however, getting up into that minor flood stage. And it wouldn't surprise me if we start seeing several of these rivers up in West Virginia get to that as well, just given how much rain they're going to get here over the next few days. Now, what I can confidently say with this forecast is it's just going to be a soaking wet one, and it's going to be kind of chilly at times, but tomorrow is actually going to be in the upper 50s, if not the 60-degree range. So while today we only max out in the 30s and 40s, tomorrow that changes rather quickly as we get up into the 50s and 60s before our next cool down. Other thing to note, wind alerts in effect. Most of these are in effect for tomorrow. So while, yes, it's still going to be windy today, tomorrow morning when that cold front passes is when we're expecting this to really get kind of blustery. You could see that watch extending all the way up the spine of the Blue Ridge Mountains, just given how windy it's going to be. Winter weather alerts still in effect for our area, those winter weather advisories, those expected to expire later tonight about 7 p.m., but frankly wouldn't surprise me in the least if they expire beforehand, just given the lack of precipitation and the fact that temperatures are going to slowly climb and hover around freezing, if not just above freezing. That being said, temperatures right now at the time of this in the 30s throughout the region. So seeing freezing rain, Blacksburg, Pulaski, Wytheville, Floyd, not really all that surprising. But as we get throughout the day, likely going to change a little bit. Let's wrap things up with looking at our sky cam real quick, and then I'll tease on what we're going to see later on this week. Yeah, right now, very much wet throughout Southwest Virginia. I mean, widespread rainfall. No other way to sugarcoat it. But with that being said, roads still going to be slick from all this, and certainly going to be, it's going to be a rainmaker for sure, and already saturated grounds going to make the flood risk a lot more prevalent, hence why we issued the alert day for today and tomorrow. Let's tease ahead to what we're looking at for next week, because this is the big thing that everybody's going to be talking about. You're going to see it pretty frequently from now on. And for snow lovers, this is great news for you. For those of you who absolutely despise snow, want nothing to do with it, want to go to spring, got one more winter storm that's coming through the area that we actually see in the foreseeable future. So, and this one's going to be a little bit different than the last few. So those last few storms, you remember, it brought in a lot of ice as well as snow and rain. This one looks like it's going to be mostly snow throughout the region. So it's timing out for you very slowly. We get into Wednesday. So Wednesday about 8:45, that's when you're going to see the first few snowflakes fall further to the north, Lexington, parts of the Highlands, up into Harrisonburg, around JMU and Charlottesville. Going to be mostly overcast elsewhere. We start seeing a little bit of blue and pink by about noon within our region. So that freezing rain risk going to be mostly limited to some of those areas within the Carolinas, including Greenville, South Carolina, up into Charlotte, Raleigh, and then also up into parts of Richmond and Emporia, Farmville. The farthest west I see this going as of now is probably about Lynchburg, which will be a little bit, but it won't be a ton, because that quickly changes over to snow within the next hour or two after that. Again, this is all on Wednesday. But then look at this snowfall map about 3 p.m. on what we're expecting. That rain snow line stays to the south. So while places such as Charlotte and Raleigh could get absolutely hammered with freezing rain and sleet, Roanoke, the New River Valley, essentially the entire region outside of maybe Danville and South Boston, looking at the potential for some pretty heavy snow should this come to fruition. With that being said, we keep going for a little bit further. By about 7:15 p.m., we see a little bit more mix further to the south. But again, notice, snowfall still consistently within the area, extending from Asheville all the way up, nearly the entirety of the state. So friends in D.C., RVA, and here in the Star City, all likely going to see snow. That system continues to move further to the east, and you'll see signs of that cold air wedge that we talk about so frequently, keeping us cold and leaving most of our area within that snow-only air risk. That system begins to make its way out just a little bit by early Thursday morning, so such areas such as New River Valley, Roanoke, likely going to see on and off flurries all day on Thursday. But the heaviest parts of this snowstorm coming through the area going to start showing up as soon as Wednesday night, maybe even Wednesday morning with a few just scattered flurries here and there by 10:30 in the morning. But then as we get later on, heavy snow, rounds of it, going to be within the area. So a classic setup for a classic snowstorm, and one that doesn't look likely to produce a ton of ice, but we could still see a few areas of sleet and freezing rain throughout the region. With that being said, we're going to touch on all of that over the next few days. Got to get through this Weather Authority alert day today and tomorrow first for the flooding and the rain risk. But again, that snowstorm going to be the next big thing we watch. More than likely going to issue an alert day for Wednesday, maybe even Thursday as well for this, just given the fact that models are in pretty good agreement with this. As for how much snow we get, because I know we're going to get this question. I know we're going to get comments about this. I know we're going to see comparisons online and whatever. We'll come up with that as we get a little bit more clarity on it. We're still pretty early out. This is Wednesday. We're on Saturday. So as we get into tomorrow, into Monday, that's when we're going to anticipate having a snowfall forecast map out. Likely by Monday or for sure by Tuesday. But likely Monday is going to be the target date for that, because that's when we're going to start seeing a little bit more clarity with some of our short-term, more high-resolution models that we see with this. Essentially what that means is a little bit of a clearer picture is going to be painted. But we're on our way to having our next winter storm, and it's likely to be a major snowstorm rather than a lot of sleet, freezing rain, and stuff like that. That being said, we'll continue to keep you updated online and on the air as we see stuff progress with this system. And as always, you can send in all your weather photos and videos to Pin It for us to feature them on air or online. We love seeing them. We love seeing even just the weather, the pets, all of the above. We love seeing it on Pin It. So be sure you go on there and post your pictures.